So hi everyone, welcome. I'm Katsi. This is for Yoga Wellness XX. We're going to do a lecture on essential oils and how they can enhance your life. So once again, with this being a recording, you can save your questions for afterwards. If you're watching the recording, you can always reach out and I'm happy to address what you need. But just due to privacy, we'll save the questions for the end. So I'm going to pull up the slides for you. Amazing. We've got it working. So great. Enhancing essentials with myself. Pretty self-explanatory. So what we're going to cover is what are essential oils, how do they react with the body, properties and the uses of the most essential, commonly used essential oils. Of course, there's so many essential oils because there's many plants out there, but we're going to address some of the most commonly used ones. We'll go over some blends, some oils for sleep, strengthening the immune system, and oils for digestion. And of course, since we're always drinking cacao here with Yoga Wellness XX, we'll give you some recipes and how you can incorporate them. So what are essential oils? I'm sure many of you know this, but essential oils are extracted from plants. It can be from the flower, it can be from the leaf, it can be from the root, it can even be from the sap of the tree. And they're either steam distilled or they're cold pressed. So most citrus oils are going to be cold pressed. And this is what creates the extraction, which is the essential oil. So if you use herbs in your cooking or you're familiar with plant properties, the essential oil is essentially going to carry the same property that the plant also holds, except it's going to be extremely more concentrated. So that's something that you really have to keep in mind when you're using oils, is that like one drop is a lot. So in a 15 milliliter bottle, so a bottle about this size, I was seeing if I had one on my desk, one about this size, for lemons, it's 75 lemons in one bottle. So again, just to put it in perspective as to how concentrated they are, so that you have an understanding of like, you don't really need to use so much. There are 3 ways to use essential oils. For one, if you're taking them internally, it's very important that you understand the grade of the oil. So when oils are used for therapeutic use, or if you see them like sold with a diffuser, really look into what's mixed in with the essential oil. The oils I use are doTERRA, so they're all certified pure and organic. So that you can take those internally. But again, you don't need a lot, just one drop. This is very, very important because when we go through how you can use the essential oils, make sure you understand where your essential oils come from to know if you can use them internally. Because if they are just used for spa purposes or for a massage or just topically or just for the diffuser, you don't want to take those internally. And of course, you can apply them topically, whether that is just directly to your skin, or you can apply it with a carrier oil. So with a coconut oil, a jojoba, almond oil, even mix it in with your body lotion. This is a way that you can apply it topically. I highly recommend, if you are applying it directly to the skin, to use a carrier oil, because again, they are very concentrated and you don't want it to burn the skin or be too intense. But as we go more in depth with each oil, you'll understand how to use your intuition, your own intelligence to know which ones are good for applying just directly to the skin. And then also aromatically, whether you are using a diffuser, one of those devices where you put the water, the oils, and the steam comes out. This is one way to apply it. Or to use it aromatically. Also, if you put it in the palms of your hands, you rub your hands together and you cup it over your face, this is a way where you can smell the oil as well. And you can see here that as you take it in, it goes through the nose, the olfactory bulb into the midbrain, to the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, into the pineal gland, the medulla, oblongata, the sympathetic chain, spinal cord, and the thyroid. So this is to how they can really start to work in depth. And essential oils also break through the blood-brain barriers, is why they're also very powerful. These are essentially the oils that we are going to dive in today, more or less. We also added in a few extra. You can see here how there's essentially like one word that connects to each oil as to the properties that they will provide. But again, we're going to go into deeper depth. So we'll start with lavender. Probably everyone's favorite oil, or typically when I ask people what is their favorite oil, a lot of people refer to lavender. You can read here the Latin name in the main constituents. So if you study chemistry, you know that linalool and linalool acetate, those are very calming properties. And that's what lavender is composed of, which is why it gives it these very calming therapeutic properties. The top uses of lavender is for sleep issues. And as we go through the presentation, you'll see in parentheses T and A. You might sometimes see an I here. This is T for topical, A for aromatic, and I for internally. So if you have any sleep issues, whether it's insomnia or just trouble winding down at night, you can apply it topically, whether it's with a carrier oil or aromatically. Stress, anxiety, teeth grinding, again, same ways. If Typically, if you are applying something topically, you would do it to the area of concern. So for example, in the teeth grinding here at the jaw, stress and anxiety, you can put it on the back side of the neck or at your wrist so that you can also smell it quite well. Focus and concentration, they're around the temples, just to help kind of calm down. So again, if you're struggling with focus, if it's a sense of like you're very hyperactive, you feel all over the place, lavender is going to help you just mellow out a bit. Sunburns, mixing with coconut oil is really nice, applying it directly to the skin, especially if there's an issue with the skin, whether it's eczema or a burn. It's nice to put it in a carrier oil because it's going to lay on the surface layer of the skin. Whereas if you put it directly on the skin, it seeps into the blood system, which in some ways you'll see is very beneficial. But when, again, you're working with something, again, scar, burns, sunburns, etc., nice to use it with a carrier oil. Allergies, hay fever, and I can elaborate a little bit more there with allergies. What's a really nice thing to do if you're suffering from allergies is take a spoonful of local honey, very important that it's local, and you can add 1 drop each of peppermint, lemon, and lavender. And just take the spoonful back and you'll feel it immediately clear the sinuses up so that you're able to breathe a bit better and clearer. Pains and sprains, of course, applying it topically where that sprain is. Cuts and wounds, you can apply it just directly to where the wound is. Blisters, same thing, directly where it is. High blood pressure, you can take it internally. I mentioned before on the slide before, internally, there's veggie caps that you can take, like empty pills that you can put 1 drop in, nice to mix it with coconut oil. Or even if you just want to put a drop in your water bottle, this is really helpful. But again, you only need like 1 drop. For migraines and headaches, again, whether you're diffusing it or just rub it on the temples or on the forehead to help alleviate that pain. And most oils are good for emotional balance, but again, aromatically or topically is a really great way to incorporate that into your life. Lemon. So again, we're all pretty familiar with lemons. Again, very cleansing, very purifying. So the same way that you would add lemon to your cooking is essentially how you're going to invite the lemon essential oil into your life. However, you might learn something new here. If you or someone that you know is suffering from kidney and gallstones, you can take it internally, again, in a capsule or add it into water. You can do the same thing for detox and lymphatic cleansing. Heartburn and reflux, you can also add ginger. Ginger, whether it's just the ginger root, or again, there's also ginger essential oil. If you're congested or there's excess mucus, this is again going to be very purifying, very cleansing. The runny nose and allergies, again, along with that same trick, lemon, lavender, peppermint, a spoonful of local honey. For gout, taking it internally. Degreaser and furniture polish, which is an interesting one. Uh, a lot of what I found in using essential oils is that it can help decrease your toxic load. And it's not just the foods that you eat and the supplements that you take, but also it's the products that you're using in your home. So I used to do this too. I mean, I've just been here with tile floors, it's a bit different, but I would have one of those Swiffer mops and I would add lemon essential oil into the water of the spray bottle. So this could help kind of go over the floors, the wood floors back home, and to help clean it. And it's just a really fresh aromatic scent as well. If you or someone you know has varicose veins, applying it topically to the veins, again, you can mix that in with the lotion. And concentration aromatically is going to be really helpful. Me personally, if I have a lot of work to do, I like to add lemon and peppermint. This is just a nice, fresh, uplifting blend to help with me concentrating. But it more says just like kind of gives me that zest in the atmosphere to get me motivated to keep going. And it is, of course, very energizing. Um, if you are, I know hot water and lemon is very common. I wouldn't recommend putting essential oils in things that are hot. It just shifts the chemical compounds a little bit. It's not dangerous, but I find that it just alters things a bit in a way that's a bit unpleasant. Peppermint is our next one. Again, we're just kind of breezing through. I'm sure we're all very uh, familiar with peppermint, whether it's the peppermint herb or peppermint gum, peppermint in our toothpaste, peppermint tea, etc. And so again, all the ways that you're using peppermint are going to carry on these properties in the sense that it's anti-inflammatory, analgesic, anti-spasmodic, it's warming, invigorating, and it's also cooling. And you might think, why is it warming and also cooling? Too much peppermint is very heating. So this is something you have to keep in mind. I made the mistake once in getting out of a hot shower and wanted to put peppermint oil on my low back because I was having back pain. And it was very, very intense because the pores were open up. So, but in a sense, it would be very cooling if you were out on a hot day and you put peppermint oil in a spray bottle, you diluted it with water, and you were to mist yourself. This would be very refreshing and very cooling and also invigorating. So just keep in mind the context in which you're using it. It's also an expectorant, is a vasoconstrictor, and it's very stimulating. So you're going to feel very awake and alert in using peppermint, which just goes on to the top uses. Alertness and mental clarity is also going to help with headaches. So rubbing it onto the temples, onto the forehead, this will help alleviate any sort of mental fog and to help you be a bit more clear. It's also going to reduce fevers and hot flashes. But again, putting it on because it is cooling is going to feel the clearing, but you also might feel a bit of tingling, a warming sensation. For me, peppermint oil is my all-time favorite oil because whether I have headaches or digestive issues, and you'll see here that it also helps with a lot of different digestive problems, whether it's gastritis, nausea, vomiting, inflammation of the stomach. This is really helpful to use. I realize I'm jumping around a bit. I just really love peppermint. um, Other ways to use it, if you or someone you know is autistic, applying it on the back of the neck, spine, and the bottoms of the feet. Again, this is, we have to be very clear in the sense of how we're using essential oils. You can't say essential oils cures anything, but it will help to reduce the symptoms. So this is more for like how you're going to incorporate them into your life and to notice the shifts. If you've been exposed to gamma radiation exposure, adding it into water, taking it internally to for antioxidant support. We already mentioned headaches, bad breath. Go figure. You have peppermint oil in your toothpaste. You can gargle it. You can internally switch it around, spit it out. Any sort of respiratory issues, apply it topically over. You can kind of put it underneath the nose, over the throat, and also over the chest, so that you're really able to take it in. Similar, just like how you put like a Vicks vapor rub. I'm not sure what the European equivalent of that is, but really helps to open up to relieve congestion. If you have too much milk supply, let's say you are a breastfeeding mother, apply it topically to the breast with fractionated coconut oil. That is what FCO is, and that'll help decrease the milk supply. So again, I really love peppermint. It's super versatile. It's a good one to always carry around with you. Melaleuca, which is also very commonly known as tea tree, plant found in Australia. Again, one that's antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic, antiparasitic, antiviral, analgesic, and a decongestant. So you can use this for a lot of skin conditions, especially if you're working with a bacterial infection, whether that is in a cut or a wound and you just want to take preventative action. It also mentions here staph infection. Again, too much tea tree oil can be a bit heating, so you don't want to use this in large amounts. It's similar in the sense of peppermint, where it's cooling and warming. So just keep that in mind, because staph infections are coming from an over sense of inflammation, and you want to decrease that. Yes, so that's it with the skin conditions, but as well as acne, of course, that's a go-to one. It was like my best friend in my teenage years is applying it to any trouble spots, and it'll literally just zap it overnight. It's very helpful from what I found. Of course, everyone's a bit different, and it's really about figuring out what works best for you. If you were to come across having bronchitis or cold or flu symptoms, you can basically use it topically, internally, aromatically, again, because it's going to help clear out any sort of virus. Taking it internally, though, doesn't taste so well. But if you're just swishing it around in your mouth and gargling, this will help the throat. And swishing around in your mouth is also really helpful if you're dealing with cavities and gum disease. So especially if the gums are overly bleeding, say you're flossing, it's a nice idea to put some tea tree. You can even add a drop of peppermint, swish it around. Clove, not mentioned here, but clove essential oil, also really helpful for your gums. Yes. I know there's other benefits listed there, but you can also read through them. So frankincense is good enough for Jesus, good enough for you. I always think back to how it was one of the main gifts give to Jesus, which also just shows how, I mean, they gave Jesus frankincense resins, but if you look at the history of essential oils, some people might say like, oh, it seems so new agey. This is what people are using these days. But keep in mind, they've been used for even around in biblical times. And there was even, showing that even Cleopatra had certain oils like in her beauty cabinet, etc., that she used that apparently is what kept her looking so young and fresh. So they've been around for a while, just like plants have been around for a while. So frankincense, again, it says it can be used here for cancer and tumors. This has just been shown in certain studies. Again, you can't say that it cures cancer. But there have been studies shown where someone has a tumor developed and they apply it topically on top of the tumor, and the tumor reduces its size and eventually goes away. Essentially, what happens when you're using frankincense is it's like a cell checkup. So imagine that you're taking the frankincense internally and it's going through your entire body and it's checking in with each cell in your being like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Because the cells should be circular, but sometimes they can be deformed. So this brings the cells into balance so that they can work very effectively for you, and is also going to help to fight off diseases, etc. So with cancer and tumors, it's a deformation of the cells more or less, and they start to attack, etc. So this is going to bring those things back into balance. It's a very powerful oil, as you can see. Seizures and trauma, again, applying it topically or internally. I'm going to give me around the head, perhaps even on the chest as well. Alzheimer's, brain injury, again, if you're doing it topically, they're around the brain and the mind. Also for Alzheimer's, rosemary essential oil is very helpful, as this helps with memory. Depression, you can take it aromatically or internally. It's also very helpful for anxiety. So I know it's not listed there, but the interesting thing about frankincense is that it has acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. I know it's not written out there, but again, acetylcholine esterase inhibitors. The interesting thing about these is that this is the same thing that is found in anti-anxiety medication that you find at the pharmacy. And of course, Western medicine is brilliant in many ways, but the downside is when you take prescriptions or medications, is that they might solve the problem, but more or less they mask the problem, and then you're left with a lot of side effects. The great thing about using things that are all natural is that you're not going to have as insane side effects because it's naturally working like in cohesion with your body, with your system. So if you were to take this internally, I know for me, if my nerves are a bit up, I put 2 drops underneath my tongue. 1 drop is also fine, of course. Wounds and wrinkles, applying it to your cream, applying it to your skin, etc. Same thing with the scars and the stretch marks. Put it in some creams or an oil and just apply it to where it's needed. Sciatica and back pain, and topically where it is, or you're taking it internally, whether it's in water or a capsule. And naturally, if you're also taking it underneath the tongue, let's say for depression, anxiety, it's also going to boost your immune system and your cellular health. Like I said, it's a cellular check-in. Warts, topically, congestion, cough, allergies, you can also do this aromatically or topically. Meditation, prayer, and focus, and very helpful. Topically under the nose, so again, you're consistently smelling it. Anytime you're connected to your breath, it's going to help you go deeper into your meditation practice. So again, frankincense is also working a lot with the mind, but if there's a specific oil that you really resonate with that helps to kind of bring you into your center, you can use that underneath the nose just to help you kind of remain your focus. As yoga kind of lays out for us, or not kind of, but as it does lay out for us, we go inwards, the pratyahara, and then this leads to the dharana, the concentration, and from steady concentration, this is what leads into meditation. So anything that's going to help you bring you to your center. Oregano, again, a very popular herb, sure, especially for Miss Anna being Italian. So oregano is very, very strong due to the carbapenem and the thiamol, which is the main constituents found in this oil. Again, if you use oregano in your soups, in your pastas, in your sauces, however you want to use it, you're going to have the same properties, but oregano essential oil is extremely strong, extremely potent, again, because it is concentrated. Where it says take it internally, I am going to discern here with oregano compared to the others. Oregano, since it is a very heating oil, I highly recommend, if you're taking it internally, to put it in a capsule. You can learn from my mistake. I had a strep throat, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I felt, oh, something's creeping up. It's coming up in my throat. I want to clear it out. I was feeling lazy. I didn't want to get the capsule out. So I just tipped my head back and tried to pour the oregano in. Nothing was coming out at first. I shook the bottle a bit, and then about 7 drops came out. Essentially, I burned the lining of my esophagus and I couldn't speak for 4 days. Again, This is because I applied the oregano directly internally, and oregano is like liquid fire. It is extremely heating. So this is one of those oils that, especially too, whether it says internally or topically, please dilute it because it will burn. Again, I had an infection on my skin. I put the oregano oil on. It cleared out the infection, but it also burnt off like a few layers of skin. I learned the hard way, but sometimes we have experiences so that we become better teachers. That's what my friend told me the other day. So I said, okay, I'll take that. So anytime you're dealing with a virus, you can take it internally. However, again, oregano, very powerful. If you're sick and you're taking oregano every day, do not exceed over 2 weeks of time. As you know, we have good bacteria and bad bacteria. Of course, it's going to work on killing the bad bacteria. But if you take this over and over and over and over again as an essential oil, it can potentially kill the good bacteria. If you're using it as an herb, don't worry if you're using it every day, just sprinkling it on, because it's not going to be as concentrated, it's not going to be as potent. I'm referring to just using it as an essential oil. So dealing with intestinal worms and parasites, again, it can take a bit of time to kind of clear those out. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so that's why, again, less than 2 weeks. Pneumonia, tuberculosis, topical to the bottoms of your feet. An interesting fact about the bottoms of your feet is that your feet have the largest pores in your body, so it's going to absorb the fastest. Yes. Where are we now? Athlete's foot, ringworm, and candida. Again, you can take this internally. Carpal tunnel and rheumatism, topical to the affected area. So if that's at your wrist, you can apply it again with a carrier oil. Very heating. If you don't have oregano, I will say thyme is very similar. They're like brothers or they're sisters, however you want to. Again, gender neutral. They're related because thyme as well has thymol, so they're going to be very powerful. Some even say thyme is more powerful than oregano. And you can probably notice that too when you're smelling thyme, you're smelling oregano, you can notice the similarities. Vetiver, perhaps not one of the most commonly used oils, but I find myself using it often as it relates to things that I need it for. And I find that it's a very strong oil as it does come from a root. So I could blame it on being a double air sign or being a bit spacey, being very spiritual, but it is helpful for me to find my connection to earth, especially if I want to get things done. So vetiver, it's a root, it's going to root you down. And again, bottoms of the feet, you're really going to feel anchored. The top uses of vetiver oil is ADD, ADHD. Again, focus concentration. You can apply it to the temples or to the forehead. It's also nice on the wrist where you can smell it. It's a very earthy, warm smell. I love it, but it takes a while to pour out. Like I even have to take the little cap off to work it in. Anorexia, again, a disorder from being a bit too spacey, a bit not malnourished. Top of the feet and on the spines is really going to help someone anchor and ultimately come into their body. That's a lot with what anorexia is having this disassociation with your body. So you want the person to come into their body to help with that. When I say it helps the anorexia, it doesn't make you anorexic. It helps you solve that so that you're more balanced. Yeah. Vitiligo, tuberculosis, insomnia. I love using this. I don't love having insomnia, but I love putting this on the bottoms of my feet at night. Again, this is a way to really anchor me down. For insomnia, I would use it topically on the bottom of my feet. Again, for focus and concentration on around the head or even behind the ears. So it's working more with that area of like the area of the body that you're using. Whereas if I were to put it at the bottom of my feet to focus, I find that it grounds me down too much. Again, to each their own. Believe it or not, breast enlargement, you can place it on your on your boobs. No need to get implants. You just need vetiver oil and PTSD, depression, anxiety, aromatically, again, because it's just very grounding. Anytime you have these disorders, it can be a little bit too much up in the head and the mind takes control. So this is when you're going to anchor yourself down. Postpartum depression, aromatically, and stretch mark, discoloration, scars, you can also apply that topically. And feel free, like if you have these issues, like for example, stretch marks came up before and using frankincense, you can also blend these. These are just suggestions from the book where it says blends well with. You can just use your own guidance. Some people like something a little bit more floral to balance out the earthiness. Sometimes people want it to be super earthy and grounding, which is why you might want to use the sandalwood. Clary sage. Moving on. I know we've spoke about this one before, and you'll see that it carries the same property as lavender as it has linalool acetate in it. So it's going to be very calming and very soothing. Clary sage, though, this is a blend actually that doTERRA offers called Clary Calm. There's a few other oils that's blended in that. But essentially, clary sage is just the hormone healer, the hormone balancer, as it regulates estrogen, promotes healthy cells for endometriosis and breast cancer. So it's going to get things, again, in balance. So endometriosis is, again, those very painful periods. And you don't have to be necessarily diagnosed with endometriosis. Perhaps you just have really serious cramps that come along with your PMS symptoms. Clary sage is going to be very helpful because it's going to help things flow smoothly. If you're dealing with low milk supply, if you are a pregnant woman, you can apply it to the breast, and it'll also help make them bigger. Anyone dealing with Parkinson's, seizures, or convulsions, again, applying it topically around the brain, the backs of the ears, back of the neck. Childbirth to ease labor pains, again, because it's releasing those cramps or those contractions. However, if you are pregnant, it's not best to use this during the pregnancy because the idea is that it helps to release, it helps things to flow out. So of course, when you are pregnant, you want to nourish the baby there and not release it too soon. But coming up to your due date, or if you're in labor, this is really helpful. We already touched on PMS, but also adding in menopause. You can take it internally. It does have a bit of a floral taste, but again, you put it in a capsule, it's all right. And topically. If I'm using clary sage topically, again, I'm going to apply it to my lower abdomen or the place of concern. Postpartum depression and anxiety, diffusing it's really nice topically as well, where you can smell it perhaps. That's very helpful. If you experience hot flashes, combine it with peppermint. Again, you can put this in a spray bottle with water and spritz it. This is a really nice way to mist. Just as you like. Insomnia, it says here you can apply it underneath the tongue. Again, I don't think it's a great taste. What I would do topically, again, on your wrists, you're kind of cuddling up with yourself, or even you can try putting it on a cotton ball and put it underneath your pillowcase so that you can smell it right there on the pillow. If you're not too worried about the textile of the pillowcase, you can also just apply it directly to the pillow so that you can smell it. It's all quite nice. So we're going to move in. This is a blend, again, offered by doTERRA. In Europe, it's called Zingest. In the States, it's called Digestin. It's the same blend, just different name. This oil consists of ginger, caraway, peppermint, anise, coriander, tarragon, and fennel. So all of those oils, again, we're not going to go into depth into all of them, but you can just know that they're all very helpful to assist your digestive system. Whether problems are developing with being nauseous, you're bloated, there's gas, indigestion, food poisoning, motion sickness, morning sickness, and or diarrhea. just gets things moving smoothly and helps with the absorption. So I will say I use this is an oil that I do not leave home without because I just have a very sensitive digestive system. There's many foods that I can't eat. But you never know sometimes when you go out to eat, something might be hidden or you wouldn't think that it was in it, or it's gluten or it's soy, etc. And if you don't have any intolerances, congratulations. But again, it'll still help if you develop any of these imbalances. But I've had moments where, like, I wake up in the morning and I'm vomiting for whatever reason, and I will put 2 drops of digestin in a shot glass with water and take it internally, and it immediately soothes my stomach. Of course, I've been in situations where it is extremely worse. Again, it helps, but if the problem persists, you can continue to take it, after a few hours, etc. They even have digestion tabs. That's just really helpful. Making a tea as well. Let's say you don't have the oil. If you were to do a ginger peppermint fennel tea, amazing. Anise is also it is what licorice is. So if you're unfamiliar with anise, just know it's like licorice. So again, one of my saving essential oils. Sleep. In our past Wellness XX program, sleep has been a really huge topic for people. And especially when you do these moon ceremonies, you probably notice that when there's a full moon, there's excess energy, you feel really jazzed and awake. But insomnia kind of manifests in this way where you're very active in the mind, but you're very tired in the body. So when you're not able to properly sleep, it can cause, of course, stress later on and affect your efficiency the next day. So, oils that you might want to incorporate to help you sleep, we've already gone through a few of these, but there's a few extra ones. Uh, Lavender, as we mentioned, calms, relaxes, and sedates, supports the parasympathetic nervous system. You can, again, bottoms of the feet, apply it, put it on your pillow, diffuse it. It's really nice. Vetiver, as we mentioned, grounds and promotes tranquility. Place it on the bottom of your feet. Chamomile uh, balances hormones, sedates, and calms, relaxes. However, chamomile is also a diuretic, as I learned from Anna. So you don't want to drink too much chamomile tea right before going to bed, for example, because then you're going to wake up wanting to go to the bathroom. So, but applying it as an essential oil on the bottoms of your feet, that's a nice way to go. There's a blend called, these other on the right side, these are blends. So there's Serenity, which has vetiver and the lavender. It's a really nice one. Balance is another oil that's very grounding. I will also use this sometimes just like throughout my day if I want just a sense of ease. Balance blended, using balance and serenity on the bottoms of the feet works wonders. These were the first 2 oil blends that I was introduced to that really got me hooked into incorporating oils into my daily life. And there's a blend called Intune. It's a focus blend, but it helps balance brain activity, which can also just help calm you down. What I would suggest is when you're looking at your sleep is to address what is the issue that is preventing you from sleeping. If you've had a very active day and the mind is continue to go racing thoughts, you perhaps choose something like vetiver that helps you kind of ground down and to focus. Whereas, just kind of depends. If you're very active, you just need to kind of calm down, like you're physically active, the lavender might help sedate you a bit more. Can't really go wrong or right. You can also blend them together, mix a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Trust your intuition. Again, I just provide you with the information, and then you can see what works best for you. As I will, just as a side note, for example, I have a friend that when she uses lavender oil, it makes her heart beat really fast. And this doesn't happen for a lot of people, but it happens for her. So if you notice that a certain oil doesn't work for you, there's other oils to choose from. So vetiver is going to be very grounding and doesn't have that floral smell that lavender has. So vetiver works great for her. Of course, clary sage isn't mentioned here, but you already know you can use clary sage. So see what resonates with you. It's nice to smell them. I know you can't smell them here on an online lecture, but perhaps if you have them in the store, or if you're ever over at my place, I have tons of oils that you can smell. Liquid sleep, also known as liquid Ambien. Here's a nice little recipe for you guys. If you're looking to be your own scientist, you can get a bottle, glass bottle. If you're doubling it, just like with any recipe, you can double it. You can also cut it more or less in half. I know some of the numbers are odd, but you can do 10 drops of vetiver, 15 drops lavender, 5 drops of frankincense, 5 drops of cedarwood. Cedarwood is also very helpful with reducing anxiety, and 10 drops of Roman chamomile. Adding that into a bottle. Again, if it's too strong, add some coconut oil. But this is a nice thing to do. Rub it on the bottom of your feet, your wrist, where you can smell it. And this is they call it liquid sleep. I've also heard it called liquid Ambien. And how can we reduce our toxic load? It's really switching to holistic practices. That's why I like to teach about essential oils. So using something all natural, much better than taking a prescription. Though it may work, it has side effects. And in the long run, we want something to be sustainable. Mega boosting cacao. So we have a cacao ceremony coming up next week. Perhaps you want to add some essential oils to it. The cacao ceremony is a new moon ceremony happening on the 11th. Again, this is recorded, so if you're watching this recording later, you can always tune in with Anna and I, as we do cacao ceremonies quite often for the new moon. But any day is a good day for cacao. If you are adding the essential oil into your cacao, you can do so by adding 1 drop. Another tip is to take a wooden toothpick, dip it in the bottle, and then stir it into your beverage of choice. So I know I mentioned before, applying it to things that are really hot, it might alter the flavor. It's best to kind of do this not when you're boiling the cacao over the stove, but once it's cooled down. Yeah, you can just kind of stir it in. I find when I put it on with the stove, it can be really intense and it really alters the flavor. And again, they're already potent to begin with, so just be careful. So depending on what you need in your life or what you feel that you need to balance yourself out, will depend on perhaps what essential oil you want to use. And you might realize, oh, wow, I'm naturally gravitate to that. And perhaps you also have some of these things that need to be addressed. For example, cassia, which is the sister to cinnamon. It's a little bit sweeter. I love using cassia in my cacao. But again, a toothpick. One time I added too much and it really just it kind of ruined the cacao. But this is going to help in balancing blood sugar, eases upset stomach, any sort of sense of nausea. It clears out phlegm, yeast, and plaque from the ears, nose, throat, lungs, and promotes healthy digestion, and it boosts your metabolism. Cardamom, again, I love just even using the cardamom spice, but you can also use the oil. Eases stomach ache, constipation, gastritis, and stomach ulcers. Can inhale to clear mental fatigue and confusion as well. I just like to add that in because it's always nice when you're cooking to breathe in really deep and take in the scents that you're adding to your food so that you can also receive the aromatic benefits. On Guard. Oh no, I didn't mention On Guard, but On Guard essentially is a blend that has clove and wild orange, I believe a bit of eucalyptus, but it's an immune support. So it really helps to boost your immune system. It's a great one that I like to use now in the winter time, but it is very heating. Cinnamon. So you all use cinnamon in your life. Now you can now know that it balances blood sugar, boosts immune system, kills germs and bacteria, improves vaginal health, and balances hormones. Wild orange, if you want to add some citrus zest, you can inhale it too to relieve stress, lessen anxiety, and boost concentration. But the flavor itself is really nice. It's going to bring you those detoxifying benefits. Ginger, again, whether you use the root or an oil, if you use ginger, it's going to promote healthy digestion, supports memory and brain support, eases cold and flu symptoms, and curbs alcohol cravings. Bergamot eases muscle cramps, increases appetite, and you can inhale it as well to relieve stress, balance emotions, and enhance self worth. Peppermint, again, we had a whole peppermint slide, but adding it internally to the cacao is going to help with easing digestion. And then while you're doing that, you can inhale for some mental clarity. Uh, Again, one drop is fine, or best to use the toothpick, especially if you're blending a lot of different oils. Um, and you can just kind of try it out for yourself and see what you like. But it's always nice to kind of mix things up to just diversify your daily routine. So I know we kind of breezed through it, and there's a lot to take in. That's why it's recorded. If you're interested in learning more, acquiring oils for yourself at wholesale price, there's my website, or you can just speak to me directly. Of course, we're all connected, but in case you're watching this later on, there's my email address. Um, there's plenty of ways to get these oils at wholesale. Some of the ways that you can get a kit where a lot of these oils are already included, and then you can order oils as you like for the price that's not at retail, or you can just buy them retail, etc. And I use doTERRA just because they're certified pure and organic, and I can trust uh, the brand, trust the oil. Also, I value how they source them. Sourcing, of course, is very important in acquiring any products, but they work directly with the families, the farmers. There's no middleman there, so they're helping bring a lot of people out of poverty that are in third world countries, etc. By giving them the business to provide for their own families, and they do lots of charities. So for me, that's why I prefer to work with doTERRA, but of course, to each their own. And you can always reach out about that because there's so much to learn. So, on that note, I thank you all for joining. I know it was a lot of information. Feel free to reach out, connect, and especially if you feel that you are dealing with a situation in life that you feel it wasn't addressed in the presentation, you can ask, and I can always recommend certain oils for you. But for now, I'm going to close the recording and open it up for questions and answers for my group that is here. And if you're watching the recording later, don't hesitate to reach out. Just thank you so much for your time and absorbing the knowledge.